Hi, my name is Mary Beth Lee, and I'm an Intel analyst with the Vertex project. Today, I'm going to walk through a demo showing how you can use Synapse to monitor social media and investigate threats to individuals. For the purposes of this demo, we'll pretend that I'm an Intel analyst working with a company that specializes in executive or VIP protection. One of our clients is an author who is about to embark on a book tour. As an analyst assigned to her case, I'm responsible for a couple different things. These include monitoring Twitter to identify threats that are made towards her, conducting additional research and analysis to try and identify the individual behind the threat and determine whether they may pose a risk to our client. And then finally, provide our physical security team with information that they can use to protect our client. This often involves just making sure that they can recognize the person and then deny them entry to the venue where our client will be speaking. So the first thing that I'm going to do is go into my Synapse instance and fork a view. Forking a view is going to give me a scratch space in which I can do all my work. I'll still have visibility into all of the data and the annotations that are in the underlying production level view. However, any of the changes that I make during my investigation, whether it's adding or annotating data, those are all going to be contained within my scratch space. At the end of my research task, I can go through and I can review all of those changes. I can correct any errors that I may have made. And then if I decide that I want to keep that data, I can go ahead and merge my view down into the production level. However, if I decide that I'm done with my investigation and I don't actually need this data anymore and I don't want to keep it, I can go ahead and delete the view. So I'm going to name my view just Twitter threats, since that's primarily what we're going to be looking at. We'll go ahead and fork that view. So right now I'm in my Twitter threats forked view. So first, let's take a look at our client. For this demo, we're pretending that our client is a woman named Jessica Valenti, who is actually a real person. She is an author. She has written multiple books as well as essays that have appeared in the New York Times and the Washington Post and in other major publications. Her work primarily focuses on women in politics, and as a result, she and her family, including her 5-year-old daughter, frequently receive a lot of threats. Because Jessica is active on Twitter, part of my social media monitoring involves specifically identifying and investigating threats made towards her on that platform. For example, this is her Twitter account. If I go ahead and click on it, we can see the details of her account on the side here. I use tags to organize data related to my various investigations within Synapse. For this specific investigation, I'm going to be using the tag that you see here, this VTX story Bluebird tag. I'm going to use the leaf at the end, in this case, Valenti, to further categorize different nodes. For example, any of the nodes that I'm working with that relate specifically to Jessica are going to have that Valenti leaf at the bottom of the tag. Using the VTX story Bluebird tag is going to be an easy way for me to organize the data and to keep track of it. And then at the end, if I need to go ahead and lift all of that data, I can easily do so just by lifting the tag itself. In Synapse, we have tools called power-ups, which are basically connectors between Synapse and external data resources. One of the power-ups that I used a lot for this investigation is a Synapse Twitter power-up that we have that allows us to pull in data from Twitter into Synapse and then model it within our data model. I used the Synapse Twitter power-up to go ahead and pull in tweets that were directed at Jessica's Twitter handle, and then I filtered through those to identify veiled threats, since Twitter usually identifies and will go ahead and remove more direct threats. So these tweets that I have here, which we can go ahead and organize by time, these are all tweets that were made over the course of 2 days at the end of May 2022. These are all an example of kind of veiled threats that I identified people making towards Jessica, where they all mention, specifically her Twitter handle. My goal is to make sure that none of the people who were behind these tweets pose a physical risk to her while she's on her book tour. This involves trying to determine how seriously we should take each of these threats, which relies in part on identifying the perpetrator to the extent possible. One of the tweets that we're going to look at specifically is this one here by a user named. I'm going to go ahead and specifically lift this tweet so we can just see it more easily. So this is the tweet itself that we use the Synapse Twitter power-up to pull in and model as an INET web post. We can see he wrote to her, "Jessica Valenti, you hypocrite, baby-killing psychos, just keep on pushing. The day will come when you wish you didn't." And this was made at the end of May 2022. One of the things that we did besides pulling in this tweet from the Synapse Twitter power-up is use the Synapse Twitter power-up to go ahead and pull in information about the actual Twitter profile of this user themselves. So if we go ahead and explore, we can see there's Jessica's Twitter account that was mentioned there, and then we can see the Twitter account, this VHOP that actually made that tweet. If we go ahead and click on it, we can see the further details to the side. We can see some of the things here that we were able to, some of these properties that we were able to populate and pull in through that Synapse Twitter power up. For example, we were able to see that while his username is, it looks like he listed his name itself as his location, it sounds like he's probably referring to Chicago, Illinois. And we can see the tagline, which we hover over it, we can actually see the full tagline that he has on his Twitter profile. One of the things that I noticed here is based on the name that was listed for the account and the username, I bet that this is, first initial, last name, and then I would bet this 1966 is probably his birth year, the date of birth, which would put him at about 56 years old. So those are things that we're going to try and verify or see if we can find some more information about. If we go ahead and we explore off of this Twitter account, we can see other data that we're able to bring in through the Synapse Twitter Power Up. For example, if we go to scroll to form, we can take a look at the INET Web Follows nodes. And these are all of the accounts on Twitter that we're able to pull in that either follows or that follow his account. We might want to take a look at these to give us a little bit more insight into this VHOF 1966 user. For example, if there's any local or regional accounts that might help confirm a location, whether this person is an alum or has membership to any workplace or university or something that could tell us about their education or maybe where they're located. Other things like whether they're a veteran, whether there's any potential relatives that are connected with this person. I might look for other accounts that have a variation of that Hoff listed as their last name or as a username. Other accounts that this person follows or that are following this person might help indicate whether they're capable of posing a physical threat to Jessica. These might include things like accounts that are associated with militia or an armed group, extremists, etc. So one of the things I might go ahead and do is maybe select a handful of accounts here and go ahead and pivot so I can see those actual accounts. There's our original account, and then it looks like there's a few others that we have some data populated, but there's others that we have nothing populated for. So we'll go ahead and just sort those so that we can focus on the ones that we just have the username and the Twitter site populated. And this, we're going to want to pull in some additional information about these accounts and see if there's anything that might tell us about location or tagline or name that would give us a little bit more insight. If we wanted to go further, we could pull in tweets, pull in their followers, but for now, we'll just start with pulling in profile information. So to do this, I'm going to use node actions. I'm going to go to the Synapse Twitter Power Up, and I'm going to specifically go to this Twitter user profile to pull in information about all of these user profiles from Twitter. And so we can see this is the data that we have. It looks like this guy is in Wisconsin. We can see their different taglines that they included. Someone's in Texas. Don't know where that guy is. But this would be a way to kind of see some additional information about some of the accounts that are following or that is following. So we can do a little bit more research this way if we wanted to. From here, I'm going to use our breadcrumbs at the top to go back to the initial tweet itself, to go back to this post, and we'll actually go back through to this INET web account. From here, I'm going to go and look again at everything that's connected to the specific Twitter user and go to scroll to form. And I'm going to want to see all the other web posts that we have for him. We use the Synapse Twitter Power Up to go in and pull in this person's recent Twitter posts, which we can see here. Their model is INET web posts. There's 614 of them. If we want, you can go ahead and sort by time. One of the things I might want to go and look at through here is to see if there's any more context that we can use to, in which we can look at that veiled threat towards Jessica. For example, has this user tweeted about her before? Do they tweet about her often? Is it just how this person engages online, or does this seem like a particularly focused message? Is this user aware that she's on a book tour where she'll be stopping? I can search through and see if there's any other information that would help identify this user. One of the things that I might want to take a look at is see if there's anything that any of these tweets that specifically mentions Jessica by name. So I might go ahead and just add a little Storm query saying that I want to see if there's any of these posts that specifically have her last name, Valenti, in the text. And so if we go and we search there, we have 4 results. You can sort by time. It looks like this first one is actually referring to another user, but then we see 3 that are referring to or have her username at least. It looks like they were all made on the same day, so it was probably kind of a series of tweets. But it's not like we have a series of tweets that were over a long period of time where he's continuously tweeting at her, which I think would be maybe a little bit more alarming in this case. We have some other power-ups that we can use for additional research into this user. For example, we have a Synapse Google search power-up that we can use to query and pull in data. We have some other power-ups that we can use for additional research into this user. For example, we have a Synapse Google search power-up that we can use to query and pull in data based on indicators from the original Twitter profile, such as querying the username that the or the name that was given. That doing this kind of search with that Synapse Google search power-up allowed me to identify some additional, what I think are some additional online accounts that are related to the same person. Most of them have that same username. There is one for YouTube, there is one for eBay, which interestingly enough also included a location, Wooddale, Illinois, that happens to be west of Chicago if you look at it on a map. This is our original Twitter. And then one of the things I also noted was another Twitter account that is a slight variation of that username. Instead of it's they have the full name and then noted location as Chicago, Illinois. One of the things that I noticed about this one is where our original, the original or Twitter account, we can see the sign up date is April 30th, 2022, about a month before he made that tweet at Jessica. This other Twitter account, it looks like the sign up date was back in March 2016. I went through and used the Synapse Twitter power-up to pull in some additional information about this account, like looking at their tweets, which if we go and we pivot off of this account, we can actually scroll to form to go and see the posts that they've made. There's only 17 posts that this Twitter account made, which if we sort by time, we see that the earliest one was, again, the beginning of March 2016, right when this account signed up. He's tweeting about Donald Trump, and it looks like this is probably the Republican nominees for presidency. And it looks like the last tweet was made in early June 2016. So it looks like he was tweeting over the course of the early part of this election cycle. If we go back to scroll to form, we can take a look at the users or the accounts that this account was following or that follow this account. So if we go and see those INET web follows, we can see that this account has 1 follower, the count the 5, and then it looks like there are three accounts that this account is following. So if we go ahead and we pivot off of those to see what those 3 accounts are, we were able to pull in some additional data about them, and it looks like they're all people who live somewhere in Illinois as their location there. So this might be people that this person knows in real life. It might be or local news. That would be something that we would be able to dig into those accounts to figure out who they are. One of the things that is particularly interesting about this account to me is that I was able to model the avatar image on this INET web account node, because the avatar, if we actually take a look at this account, let's go to the URL. The avatar here I felt like was worth capturing. The avatar for the initial account that was created in 2022 is just a Second Amendment thing, but for this 2016 account, the avatar is actually a profile picture of a person. You can see also from the background photo, there's a lot going on that doesn't really surprise me given some of the things that this account was tweeting about. But this profile picture, I wanted to make sure that we captured this avatar as modeled to this account in Synapse because it does look like it is a profile picture of a specific individual. And we actually, so taking a look at this, if we go ahead and we pivot from that early Twitter account, and we see this is the file bytes node that is that profile picture. We actually found it somewhere else as well. If we go ahead and we pivot off of that and we use scroll to form, I was actually able to find a profile for somebody else who used that same photograph as their profile picture, as their avatar. So the photograph matched that 2016 Twitter account photo. This individual, they had their name listed, their location as Naperville, Illinois, which also happens to be west of Chicago. They worked for a mortgage company as a loan originator. And I captured all of this information as a PS contact node within Synapse. Trying to pivot off of this a little bit more using the potential connection to this woman who is works in mortgage. I found a actual court case that was versus Carrington Mortgage Services LLC. It was in 2012, and it looked like it had to do with the Fair Labor Standards Act. So this could be, the individual in this case who filed in the Chicago office may have been, this may have been a suit against a former workplace, but it could potentially be the same person. One of the things that was particularly important for us, given that Jessica is on a book tour, and finding out was that we want to make sure, we want to see how close this person would potentially be to any places that Jessica would be. And from our research, we were able to identify a couple different sites for this person who we think is behind that tweeted threat to her. We modeled these places as geospatial nodes. And if we go ahead and we search them in our geospatial view, we can see we have two that were attributed to this VHOF, and then one with Valenti, which is where she's going to be speaking. And if we go ahead and look them up on the map, we can see the two locations for VHOF are in orange. One is near Naperville, which we think is a work location. There's one just south of Lombard, which we think is probably a home location. And then we can see where Jessica will be speaking at her book tour, where she's going to be at a bookstore over south of Evanston. So one of the things that I might want to be able to find out from collecting this information is, how close is this person going to be to where she is? Is this a drivable distance? Is there a chance that this person would be able to show up? And, if we decide that they do pose a risk, is that something that we have to worry about? Are they going to be within the vicinity of where Jessica will be? Now, after going through all my research, I might decide that it's time to share some data with our physical security team if I do believe that this person has the potential to be disruptive or a threat to Jessica. One of the ways that I can do that is through creating a story for them using our internal stories tool. One of the ways I can do that is by creating a story for them using our internal stories tool. I might go ahead and create something like this, where I have a little write-up for them with a summary of what I found and why I'm concerned. I might decide to include an image of the threat itself, and then a profile of the person that we think it might be behind this threat, noting things like what we think is the profile image of what this person looks like so that they can recognize him, the date of birth, so they have a sense of how old this person is going to be, if they're scanning people, if they're letting them into the bookstore, his proposed location, specifically the two locations that we identified down here, and then the different names that we saw this person, that we believe this person might be going under. So if I share it with them, whether it's internally within Synapse or through a PDF, it would look something like this. They would have a map, the image of the tweet, the image of the person, profile of the actor, and then a little summary of that data. Now, as Jessica is on her book tour and going to her different stops, I might decide that I want to continue to monitor threats made against her, especially maybe threats from the specific account, just to see if there's anything that I need to change within my analysis, or if I need to give our physical security team some additional information so they can better protect our client. I might decide that I want to take advantage of some automation within Synapse to help me do that. For example, one of the things that I might decide to do is create a cron job, which is a scheduled piece of automation. This is an example of a cron job that I might create, where I might decide that, I want to regularly have a regularly scheduled cron job that's going to pull in new tweets from this account. I might decide to pair this cron job with maybe a trigger that takes every time new tweets come in from this account that kicks off the trigger, which will maybe go through and scan the text of each tweet. I might decide to pair this with a trigger, which every time the cron job comes in and models new tweets from this account, maybe it will kick off the trigger, which is an event-based piece of automation. The trigger might be something that goes through and looks at the text of each tweet. Maybe I designed the trigger to notify if there's mention of Jessica Valenti's name of her Twitter handle. And if the trigger finds a tweet that mentions her, maybe I will want to pair it with another Synapse power up we have, like our Synapse Jira power up or something where it can actually create a Jira ticket for me or send me an email or any other of these notification things that we've done with Synapse, so that I know that I should come in here and look at this new tweet and see why is he tweeting about Jessica again, and see if this is something that we need to worry about, if it's another threat, if he's aware that she's in Chicago on a book tour, if it's something that would change my analysis or something that I would want to give more information to our physical security team so that they can keep Jessica safe. So that's an example of some things that I might be doing going forward. So that's how you can use Synapse to do some social media monitoring and evaluate some physical threats.